Before Zhang Yun could say anything, Shi Zifeng glanced at Wong Lin. Her expression changed instantly. She hurriedly stepped forward, respectfully cupping her fists and bowing, repeatedly saying, "I am Shi Zifeng, a junior here to pay my respects. Thank you for saving my life twice, senior." At this moment, her face turned red. Wong Lin took a look at this woman. She was 3 times more beautiful than Zhang Yun. He vaguely remembered that she had been one of the individuals who had kicked him into the void when he was being controlled by Yin Lazy outside the Immortal Realm Gate. Furrowing his brows, Wong Lin felt troubled. Had he known this would happen, he would never have saved Zhang Yun. Now he sighed darkly and said solemnly, "Do you 3 have Immortal Jade?" Shi Zifeng was taken aback. Before she could respond, Zhang Yun hastily added, 10,000 Immortal Jade is worth a life, and an additional 10,000 Immortal Jade can grant 1 hour here. Shi Zifeng nodded. That is only reasonable. She and the 2 others promptly produced their Immortal Jade and put it into a storage pouch, respectfully handing it to Wong Lin. Wong Lin accepted it and closed his eyes, ignoring them. Along with Zhang Yun, the 4 of them sat together, gazing into the void outside the fragment, all feeling a sense of being alive after disaster, softly conversing. The speed of the fragment was incredibly fast. Gradually, as they delved deeper into the Thunder Immortal realm, Wong Lin's brows remained tightly knit. Along the way, he encountered many cultivators, some scattered while others were gathered together. When these individuals saw the 100-zhang fragment, it was as if they had found a lifeline, and they tried every means to approach. Among them were some who recognized the 4 on the fragment. Consequently, the number of cultivators on the fragment gradually increased, which meant less worry for Wong Lin. Every time newcomers arrived, Zhang Yun would step forward first to explain the requirement for Immortal Jade. At this moment, Wong Lin already had several storage pouches in his possession, each containing a considerable amount of Immortal Jade. Nearly 20 cultivators were on the 100-zhang fragment now. These individuals did not sit together. Aside from acquaintances, the others sat cross-legged, gazing into the void outside, each harboring their own complex thoughts. Some of them recognized Wong Lin and immediately relaxed completely, believing that as long as Wong Lin was there, everything would be safe. As the 100-zhang fragment flew swiftly through the void, more cultivators joined, and eventually, their numbers exceeded 50. Looking at the many cultivators behind him, Wong Lin frowned, his gaze sweeping past them to the void behind the fragment, where several dozen shining rainbows chased closely behind. The cultivators within those rainbows were unable to keep up with the speed and did not know anyone among the cultivators on the fragment. Under such circumstances, they lacked the ability to reach the fragment by their own strength. However, they could follow the path cleared by the fragment, ensuring some safety as the rift seemed to close behind it, making it far easier to navigate compared to the outside world. Gradually, more cultivators gathered. Behind the fragment continent, a long line formed, with sword lights flickering like countless tails following closely. To them, this was the only lifeline in this place. Among them were some highly skilled cultivators who, without needing assistance, could fly up to the 100-zhang fragment due to their own strength when not far away. Nevertheless, regardless of their cultivation level, once they landed on the fragment, they would hesitate momentarily but ultimately submit and hand over their Immortal Jade to secure their place. Wong Lin's reputation from the battle outside the Immortal Realm Gate played a significant role in this process. Even young fulfillment cultivators would respectfully address him as senior upon seeing him. Sighing as he touched the storage pouch containing the Immortal Jade, Wong Lin decided to stop paying attention to the others. He could sense that Shen Gonghu was not far away. At that moment, a massive boulder appeared in the void ahead, approximately 1,000 zhang long, with its edges crumbling continuously as it flew. Each collision with the rift caused it to tremble and shed large chunks. On the edge of this boulder stood 3 individuals, each possessing yang fulfillment cultivation. Behind them were nearly 100 cultivators, all gazing greedily at the 100-zhang fragment where Wong Lin was. "Hand over this Immortal Realm fragment," one of the golden-robed men on the edge spoke in a chilling voice. Wong Lin remained calm, glancing at the 3 of them, his gaze falling on the 1,000-zhang boulder beneath their feet. It was clear that they had also come up with the same method of travel. However, the boulder they had obtained had not undergone tribulation refinement, making it unstable. It would likely crumble and had probably changed hands multiple times along the way. The golden-robed man stepped forward, directly entering the void, deftly avoiding the rifts as he charged toward the 100-zhang fragment where Wong Lin was located. Following him, another of the 3, an elderly man in white robes, stepped forward as well. Only the scholar in the blue robe remained, standing atop the shattered rocks, his gaze cold and menacing. Wong Lin's expression remained calm, without the slightest ripple. He raised his right hand, pointing forward. Immediately, the beast bone pattern on the back of his hand shifted, transforming into a streak of dark light that flew out, forming into the shape of a beast bone in the void. The four vicious, sharp spines emitted a chilling glow. At the beast bone's eye sockets, a flash of eerie light flickered, and in an instant, a dense murderous aura spread out. Almost instantly, the golden-robed man, the first to charge, had yet to cast any spell or divine art when his body trembled. A gray light spread from his legs, rapidly engulfing his entire body. His eyes widened in horror as he gasped, raising his right hand to strike his forehead. The moment the gray light consumed his flesh, his essence spirit flew out. Wong Lin sneered coldly. He tapped his storage pouch, and the soul banner immediately trembled, transforming into a cloud of black mist that surged toward the man's essence spirit. At this moment, the elderly man in white drew near. He ignored his companion and formed a hand seal, shouting, "Immortal art, thunder slash." In an instant, thunderclouds gathered in front of him, forming into a lightning blade that seemed capable of cleaving heaven and earth, charging directly at Wong Lin. A sharp, whistling sound filled the air. Wong Lin's gaze sharpened. Before the lightning blade even reached him, he sensed its fierce aura. In that instant, when the blade was about to strike, Wong Lin's third eye flared, his essence spirit flying out just as the blade descended, swallowing the attack whole. As his essence spirit returned to his body, Wong Lin's complexion regained a hint of color. He stood up, coldly staring at the stunned elder in white. With a sudden step forward, he shot out. The elder's face changed drastically. Without hesitation, he quickly retreated. As he did, the scholar in blue, standing on the shattered rocks, furrowed his brow. His body flickered, and he jumped forward. Wong Lin's eyes gleamed with cold light. He was not one to provoke others easily, but if someone struck first, he would never hold back in his retaliation. At this moment, he pointed at the elderly man in white, and the immortal art of immobilization was instantly cast. As the elder retreated, he suddenly felt as if he had sunk into water, his body bound by the weight of multiple mountains, coming to an abrupt halt. Not only his body, but even his essence spirit and primordial energy froze in place. Wong Lin took a step forward, his right hand forming a sword with 2 fingers. As he passed the elder in white, he struck his forehead. The elder's body erupted with blood mist, instantly collapsing. His essence spirit, filled with shock and fear, tried to escape, but Wong Lin's eyes flashed with cold light. He reached out into the void and seized the elder's essence spirit. "Friend, stop." A loud shout came from the scholar in blue. His body moved like lightning, charging at Wong Lin. With a wave of his right hand, a phantom sword flew out from his Tianling and appeared in front of Wong Lin in an instant, stabbing fiercely. Wong Lin's expression remained frosty. He crushed the essence spirit in his hand, and as he turned, his third eye immediately snapped open, releasing a burst of crimson light that spread in a fan shape, enveloping the phantom sword. Under the red glow, the phantom sword immediately began to emit dark mist and shattered in an instant. The scholar in blue came to a sudden stop, standing 10 paces away from Wong Lin. His face darkened, and he stared at Wong Lin, saying coldly, "Your powers are extraordinary, but this matter ends here. Please." His eyes barely concealed the killing intent as he slowly began to retreat. Wong Lin gave him a cold glance, retracted the soul banner, and with a flicker of his body, returned to the shattered rocks. The cultivators there, who had been lying prone, now stood up and looked at him with surprise. Once back on the 100-pace shard, Wong Lin sat down cross-legged. The shards before him surged forward, crashing outward. Sitting cross-legged, Wong Lin swallowed his essence spirit and pointed toward the sky, murmuring, "Wind summoning." At once, a black wind appeared, transforming into a black dragon that roared as it charged toward the scholar in blue. The man's face changed drastically, and he quickly retreated. However, at that moment, the black dragon opened its mouth and expelled a gust of wind. The wind howled, spreading across the land. As the scholar in blue retreated, he shuddered. His eyes dimmed, showing signs of struggle. But before he could resist, he stepped into a 3-meter-long spatial rift that had suddenly appeared behind him. With a desperate, furious cry, his body vanished without a trace, leaving only the echo of his scream. For those who had seen Wong Lin fight the white-haired man outside the Immortal Realm Gate, his act of killing 3 young fulfillment cultivators was no surprise. They considered it to be expected. However, those who hadn't witnessed such feats were stunned. Especially those who had hesitated when paying the immortal jade, now secretly rejoicing. Some cultivators who had once thought about seizing the 100 pace shard from Wong Lin were now drenched in cold sweat, filled with fear. After that, the journey ahead was silent. The area within the 100 Zhang fragments was completely quiet, with no one speaking. In this silence, an invisible pressure gradually enveloped the space. This oppressive air came from the fear and reverence King Lin inspired in their hearts. The speed of the 100 Zhang fragments kept increasing. After several hours, King Lin's gaze sharpened as he looked ahead. In the vast emptiness, a sword light flashed by. The figure within that light was none other than Shen Gonghu. While flying, Shen Gonghu suddenly turned around and fixed his eyes on the rapidly approaching 100 Zhang fragments. At a glance, he saw King Lin. His eyes immediately lit up with excitement. His body swayed, and he sped directly toward King Lin. Shen Gonghu, greetings to the master. Shen Gonghu landed a few yards away from King Lin, bowing respectfully. His gaze toward King Lin was filled with fervent admiration. A slight smile appeared at the corner of King Lin's mouth. He nodded slightly and said, "Sit down over there, and take me to the Thunder Immortal Palace's teleportation array." Without even sparing a glance at the others on the fragments, Shen Gonghu immediately sat cross-legged and respectfully said, "Master, the teleportation array is not far from here." He then pointed in the direction. The people on the 100 Zhang fragments were shocked by the scene before them. Some of them knew Shen Gonghu, and upon hearing him address King Lin as master, they all began to ponder. Shizi Feng gazed at King Lin's back. It seemed like something had come to her mind, and her delicate face flushed slightly. However, her gaze never left him. The collapse of the Thunder Immortal realm reached its peak as the 100 Zhang fragments sped forward. In the void, massive spatial rifts appeared, pulling in endless cold winds. The sound of the continent collapsing echoed continuously. The deeper they moved into the Thunder Immortal realm, the more intense the phenomenon became. Eventually, the entire void seemed filled with rifts, which continued to expand and connect, forming enormous tiers that stretched beyond 100 zhang in length. King Lin's expression darkened as he controlled the 100 zhang fragments to speed ahead. Just then, his eyes widened, and the 100 zhang fragments came to an abrupt stop. It immediately turned in an arc and changed direction. As it veered, a massive rift nearly 200 zhang long appeared out of nowhere. Several cultivators following the fragments couldn't dodge in time and were swallowed by the rift, their desperate cries for help echoing through the air. King Lin remained fully focused, not sparing a thought for others, completely absorbed in controlling the 100 zhang fragments. As he navigated through the speeding fragments, he skillfully avoided one massive rift after another, but his face grew darker with each passing moment. "How much farther?" King Lin asked in a deep voice. "Not more than 10 miles. Shen Gonghu replied anxiously. The rifts ahead made his scalp tingle. King Lin furrowed his brows slightly. With another shift of the 100 zhang fragments, they avoided several more rifts and continued forward. Slowly, they got closer, and King Lin saw a massive light screen several miles ahead. Within the screen, there was a stationary fragment of a continent. There was a formation on it, and several figures stood inside it, clearly preparing for teleportation. Among them was none other than Zhang Konglai. Outside the formation, 7 or 8 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries were conversing with one another. The group of people seemed to have sensed something. Suddenly, they turned around and coldly looked toward King Lin's position. One of them raised his right hand and pointed to the sky. Immediately, a wave of primordial energy emanated from his palm, merging into the surrounding light screen and spreading outward. Outside the light screen, the primordial energy condensed into a massive hand, sweeping through the area. As it did, all the rifts within 1,000 zhang of the light screen shattered, quickly spreading into a circular shape from both ends. It was like an impassable moat, about to connect fully. Once connected, no one in the area would be able to cross the enormous circular rifts surrounding the light screen. Begone! At that moment, an icy divine sense echoed through the heavens and earth, exuding ruthless indifference. A cold glint flashed in King Lin's eyes. His entire being surged with primordial energy, merging with the fragments beneath him. He took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly burst with sharp light. The speed of the 100 Zhang fragments surged, as if fusing with the very heavens and earth. In an instant, the 100 Zhang fragments broke through the air, crashing directly into the rifts that stood in their way. Behind the fragments, many cultivators gritted their teeth, throwing caution to the wind and charging forward. Ahead lay the only hope: enter, and there would be life. Fail to enter, and certain death. The 100 Zhang fragment's speed almost turned into an afterimage as it collided forward, the sound of thunderous crashes ringing in the air, like a 100 Zhang meteor. Just as the rifts outside the light screen connected, the fragments crashed into it. King Lin stood up, raised his hand to tap his storage pouch, and the immortal sword appeared in his grasp. He swung it downward, but instead of a single strike, King Lin unleashed 9 blows in an instant. The 9 severing Luo arts merged into one, forming an unimaginable sword of annihilation. It radiated a dark aura and struck the rift in front of the fragments where the rifts had already connected. Boom. Even the rift connection, in this moment, under the overwhelming power of the severing Luo technique, staggered for an instant. The edges were immediately torn apart, rapidly expanding as if being ripped open, and within the blink of an eye, the previously connected circular rifts were violently torn open, creating a gap. The might of the severing Luo technique still lingered. After severing the rift, it plunged directly inside, crashing against the light screen with a loud bang. Immediately, large ripples spread out across the screen, distorting everything inside, twisting reality itself. At the same time, the 100 Zhang fragment shot forward with the momentum of an unstoppable force, like a true falling star. It followed the severing Luo technique and crashed into the light screen with a deafening boom. A thunderous sound rang out, shaking the surrounding small rifts apart with an earth-shattering crash. This sound was so intense that even the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries within the light screen turned their heads, especially Zhang Konglai, who, upon spotting Wong Lin, immediately displayed an expression of excitement. After the massive impact, the sound of cracking echoed through the air, and large cracks appeared on the light screen, rapidly spreading outward. At the same time, the cultivators who had been relentlessly following the 100 Zhang fragment rushed in through the gap. Wong Lin's eyes flashed coldly as he manipulated the fragment to retreat several paces. Under the watchful eyes of the many cultivators on the fragment, it suddenly accelerated and crashed against the light screen with another thunderous boom. The cracks on the light screen grew more numerous, nearly covering the entire surface, and its glow instantly dimmed. This scene unfolded so quickly. Within mere moments, one of the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries inside the light screen darkened in expression, lightning coursing over his body. Without hesitation, he dashed forward and stepped out from the light screen. Such audacity! Dare to intrude upon the Thunder Immortal Palace's forbidden ground. As soon as this lightning-covered figure emerged, before Wong Lin could make a move, several individuals from the Fragment continent flew out and began battling him with their divine abilities. Senior, do not concern yourself with this one. We'll handle him. One of those engaged in battle immediately shouted. Wong Lin nodded slightly, and the 100 Zhang fragment retreated again. This time, he took 10 breaths to prepare. Not just him, but every cultivator on the fragment, and even those who had been following from behind, all flew up, surrounding the edges of the fragment with their hands pressed against it. Each person unleashed their most powerful divine abilities, fusing them together. With Wong Lin's primordial energy guiding them, they surged forward with a piercing shriek, forming a sharp tip at the front of the 100 Zhang fragment. With a massive roar, the entire fragment collided with the light screen. A resounding boom followed, and the light screen finally shattered. Countless shards of the light screen were swept up in the storm, while the 100 Zhang fragment pierced through, entering halfway. The surrounding cultivators immediately rushed in, flooding the massive teleportation array on the fragment with frantic cultivators seeking survival. This belief was called survival. This struggle was the fight for existence. The previous speed of the 100 Zhang fragment had given these cultivators hope, but now, as they rushed in, they were fighting for their very lives. Like butterflies breaking free from their cocoons, in this moment, it was either life or death. The belief in survival, the struggle to live, made the cultivators charging in after the light screen shattered go mad. Cultivators aiming for the Zenith realm dared to glare defiantly at those in the Yang fulfillment realm, daring to take action as if they had forgotten the insurmountable gap between them. They forgot how, in the outside world, or before the collapse of the immortal realm, they would have groveled and shown great respect. All of that collapsed before the will to survive, disintegrating entirely. If only a single Zenith realm cultivator acted in such a manner, it would not be a cause for concern. But when it was 10, 20, 50, 100, it was no longer a trivial matter. but a terrifying force that would make any young fulfillment cultivator uneasy. Although for a young fulfillment cultivator, massacring over 100 Zenith Realm cultivators was not difficult, this force was in their momentum. Facing the surge of energy from so many cultivators, the 7 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries outside the teleportation array changed their expressions. Among these over 100 frenzied Zenith Realm cultivators, there were several deficiency cultivators, their power far beyond that of ordinary Zenith Realm cultivators. As they went wild, their strength became truly astonishing. If this was enough to make the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries wary, then within this group of cultivators, there were also 2 young fulfillment cultivators. These 2 had concealed their power for so long that the moment they broke through the light screen, they erupted with terrifying cultivation levels, their sudden appearance sending shockwaves through the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries. But none of that could compare to the true source of fear, the presence of Wong Lin. Though also a young fulfillment cultivator, the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries could sense an overwhelming aura of murderous intent emanating from Wong Lin. This bloodthirsty aura had clearly been formed after massacring countless peers of the same level. Especially the frenzied cultivators around them, even at this moment, when they looked at Wong Lin, their eyes still held awe. This gaze came from the Dao-seeking stage, from the deficiency stage, and even those 2 young fulfillment cultivators shared the same expression. This scene caused the 7 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries outside the formation to be shaken to their core. Kill. A cultivator who charged and let out a roar, as though it instantly ignited the heavens and earth. All the cultivators surged forward in a wild rush. Kill. 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 Countless divine abilities surged, countless magical artifacts spread out, and the fragments of the 1,000 Zhongxi's teleportation array were completely enveloped by the light of magical artifacts and the radiance of divine abilities in this moment. The frenzied attacks erupted uncontrollably. Kill. A Dao-seeking cultivator, controlling over 100 flying swords, wore a savage expression and charged toward one of the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries without hesitation. With a point of his finger, the flying swords howled, sharp and deadly, heading straight for the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary. Beside him, 14 or 15 Dao-seeking cultivators had bloodshot eyes, unleashing divine abilities in a mad frenzy. On the other side, led by a deficiency cultivator, 6 or 7 Dao-seeking cultivators followed, merging together as one to form a fierce attack, charging directly toward the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries ahead. Kill. Further away, 2 young fulfillment cultivators split up, each facing a Thunder Immortal Palace emissary. Without a second thought, they unleashed their primordial energy divine abilities. Behind them, more than 10 Dao-seeking cultivators lent their support, with magical artifacts and divine abilities pouring out like a torrential rain. Kill. Under the leadership of 2 deficiency cultivators, Shi Feng, along with a group of Dao-seeking cultivators, charged toward another Thunder Immortal Palace emissary. The mighty force of magical artifacts and terrifying divine abilities erupted with a deafening boom. The remaining cultivators split into 2 groups, rushing toward the last 2 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries outside the formation. The atmosphere was so intense it seemed to form a storm of survival. At this moment, no one cared about the identity of the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries. Right now, no matter who they were, even if they were Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries, so what? The authority of the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries meant nothing in front of the desperate crowd struggling for survival. It had no effect, not in the slightest. Anyone who stands in my way of survival must die. Immortals kill immortals, demons kill demons. All the cultivators seemed to have gone mad. With a flick of his finger, a Thunder Immortal Palace emissary struck a Dao-seeking cultivator in the forehead. The cultivator trembled, his body collapsing, and his essence spirit immediately dissipated. Yet, in the final moment before his death, he still lunged forward, biting into the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary's arm. His red glowing eyes made the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary's heart tremble, even though it was only a disintegrating head that bit down. Kill. Nearby, another Thunder Immortal Palace emissary formed seals with both hands. His primordial energy surged, and with a sudden release, it caused massive devastation. In an instant, many of the cultivators nearby vomited blood, their bodies weak, yet none retreated. They continued struggling and charging forward. Some cultivators, heavily injured in the collapse, chose to self-destruct upon getting closer, causing thunderous explosions that reverberated through the heavens and earth. The carnage. Kill. The shouts melded into one another, forming great waves that howled across the land. The intensity of the sound grew louder and louder, more and more shocking. The killing intent of survival seemed to turn into a tangible force, infiltrating every cultivator's heart, exploding like a complete belief. This spectacle stunned not only the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries but also Wong Lin. Wong Lin took a deep breath. At this moment, he too had a belief in his heart. With a step forward, he rushed out like lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared next to one of the Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries. His right hand formed 2 fingers into a sword, lifting them high, and the severing luo technique flashed. Wong Lin's strike caused the cultivators in the area to erupt with an even greater momentum. The momentum soared, reaching its peak, and amidst the continuous roars of killing intent, it was as though the waves of the ocean were crashing, extraordinarily frightening. The severing luo technique flashed and fell directly. The Thunder Immortal Palace emissary at the Yang fulfillment stage's expression changed in an instant. Without hesitation, he retreated, forming hand seals and conjuring countless thunderballs in front of him, quickly sending them toward Wong Lin. The sound of thunderous explosions rang out, accompanied by immense primordial energy, heading straight for Wong Lin. However, as the thunderballs flew toward him, they collided head-on with the severing luo technique's power and instantly disintegrated. Wong Lin's eyes flashed with cold light as his body surged forward. The Thunder Immortal Palace emissary retreated again, opening his mouth and spraying out a cloud of gray mist. The moment the mist appeared, it immediately formed into a giant hand that reached for Wong Lin, who was rushing toward him. But at that very moment, a silver light flashed from a distance, moving faster than lightning, and in the instant the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary exhaled the mist, it drew near his body. The Thunder Immortal Palace emissary's expression changed drastically. He attempted to dodge, but it was already too late. In the face of danger, his entire primordial energy erupted, creating a storm to try and force back the one who had launched the sneak attack. However, the silver light was too fast. Almost the moment the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary released his primordial energy, the silver light flashed and pierced through his chest. The Thunder Immortal Palace emissary coughed up a mouthful of blood and staggered forward a few steps. At that moment, a cold gleam flashed in Wong Lin's eyes. He didn't look at the incoming gray mist hand, but instead pointed forward with his right hand, immediately unleashing a violet thunderbolt from his hand. In the blink of an eye, it struck the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary's forehead. The emissary's body trembled, and both his body and essence spirit were destroyed. At this moment, the silver light flashed again and transformed into a thin middle-aged man. This man was none other than one of the 2 Yang fulfillment cultivators who had concealed their cultivation and remained on the 100 Zhang fragment earlier. He cupped his fist towards Wong Lin, his eyes filled with respect. Then with a flicker, he went to assist others. Wong Lin nodded slightly. He had already seen through their cultivation, but since they had submitted the Immortal Jade, he didn't expose them and allowed them to stay. Having killed a Thunder Immortal Palace emissary, this scene was immediately noticed by all the cultivators. In an instant, their momentum surged. Make way. Wong Lin's body shifted, and he appeared beside the second Thunder Immortal Palace emissary. As his primordial energy surged, his finger extended and suddenly pressed out. The Thunder Immortal Palace emissary's face turned pale, and he didn't retaliate. Instead, he immediately began to retreat. But it wasn't just him. The remaining Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries all retreated as well. As they fell back, a flash of silver light appeared. The silver light cut across the chest of one of the retreating Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries, spraying a large amount of blood. The emissary's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he growled, "Soul Pursuit." In an instant, the blood in midair twisted and turned into a blood-red longsword in an illusory state, charging directly towards the silver light. Wong Lin took a step forward. As the blood sword neared the silver light, he snatched it out of the air. With a twist of his primordial energy, the blood sword turned into a swirling crimson mist and dissipated. As he released his grip, Wong Lin turned and focused on the 6 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries who had retreated to the edge of the formation. He spoke in a low voice, "Make way. Make way. Make way. Make way." After Wong Lin's words, the surrounding cultivators almost simultaneously growled, their voices echoing in unison. The cries of "make way" mixed together, forming an unimaginable sound that resonated through heaven and earth. This sound was a cry for survival, a roar for life. It was intense and violent, shaking the very earth itself. It became a sonic boom, like a towering wave, descending with immense force. "Make way." The roar of sound surged, and the 6 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries outside the formation involuntarily began to retreat, as if they were facing the very heavens and earth themselves. At this moment, the teleportation array behind the 6 Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries suddenly flashed. Several of their companions, including Zhang Konglai, watched in shock as they looked at the scene unfolding before them. The array had activated, trapping them inside, and they couldn't escape. But what they saw in front of them was something they would never forget. Gradually, their figures twisted and transformed into a beam of light, shooting into the sky, disappearing. Make way. This was the cry for survival, the roar of every cultivator who had charged into this place. Their unified shout was like a sharp sword, cutting through everything. Even though they were facing glimpses of Nirvana cultivators, this sound would still shake them to their core. Make way. The sonic boom had not yet faded when an even larger sound explosion followed closely behind, amplifying the momentum even more. This sound was emitted by Wong Lin. As his words fell, he suddenly took a step forward. At this moment, not only did Wong Lin move, but those cultivators who had just fought and charged into this place also stepped forward. The step was taken in the void, but it resounded with a series of thunderous bangs. It was as if they were attempting to shatter the very heavens and earth. Wong Lin's steps didn't stop, and he continued moving forward, each step creating a booming sound that reverberated through the land, heading straight toward the 6 Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries outside the formation. The force was overwhelming. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it would be impossible to truly feel the shock. Over 100 cultivators, their eyes bloodshot, roared in unison as they surged forward toward the teleportation array. This scene shook the 6 Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries. Despite their high cultivation, they were still deeply affected. With the surge of cultivators, the sounds of footsteps and roars reverberated, and the air became thick with the smell of blood and shredded flesh. One of the Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries, his face pale, instinctively began to retreat. Once he retreated, it was like a broken dam. There was no stopping it. His feet stumbled back. It wasn't just him. The other Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries were also pushed back under the overwhelming force of the charge. Retreat, 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 retreat. The 6 of them retreated in unison. They had to retreat. There was no choice. The force before them was irresistible. Though each of them was capable of slaughtering the majority of cultivators within that force, the sheer momentum, the madness of the recent onslaught, shook their courage to its core. In all their years of cultivation, they had rarely seen cultivators whose bodies collapsed and heads were severed, yet still managed to bite at the enemy. They had witnessed cultivators, knowing death was certain, gravely wounded and their essence spirit dissipating, still choose self-detonation to wound their foes. But never had they seen so many choose the same path of death together. Scene after harrowing scene had left an indelible shock upon their very souls. And that wasn't all. Among the charging cultivators were deficiency cultivators, 2 young fulfillment cultivators, and Wong Lin. The presence of these individuals, especially Wong Lin, who had just slain someone in a single strike, terrified them beyond words. They couldn't resist. All they could do was retreat, retreat, and retreat again. Their steps grew faster and more desperate, until moments later, the 6 had fallen back to the center of the teleportation array. Activate the formation, we're leaving. They're insane. A whole pack of lunatics, shouted one of the 6, a middle-aged man, his face pale as death. Before him surged red-eyed cultivators, charging forward in a frenzied tide. He didn't even need to give the order. 3 of the others immediately sat cross-legged, forming hand seals to activate the array and flee. A cold gleam flashed in Wong Lin's eyes. With a single stride, he stepped into the teleportation array. Behind him, a torrent of cultivators poured in. Of the Xun'er Immortal Palace emissaries, aside from the 3 initiating the array, the remaining 3 gritted their teeth and rushed to intercept. One of them formed a seal and spat out a mouthful of spirit essence blood, within which floated a golden lock. As it emerged, it blazed with dazzling radiance and expanded rapidly. Lock the essence, seal the divine, the man roared, his face twisted. The massive golden lock suddenly exploded with a bang, disintegrating into countless beams of golden light that shot toward Wong Lin and the cultivators behind him. Wong Lin formed a seal with his right hand and pointed to the sky. Instantly, dark wind surged from his hand, forming a raging storm that swept across the heavens. Within the storm, a black dragon took shape. The moment it appeared, it let out a thunderous roar. From the dragon's mouth, wind burst forth, sweeping through the sky. Before the golden beams could even reach their targets, the wind struck, and under the gaze of the surrounding cultivators, the beams dissipated one by one. At the same time, Wong Lin reached out with his right hand. The black dragon shrank rapidly and descended into his palm, where it transformed back into the golden lock, now cloaked in black mist. This treasure, not bad, Wong Lin said coldly. He swallowed the lock in one gulp, surrounding it with the thunderous might of his essence spirit, beginning the process of refining it. The cultivator who had unleashed the golden lock turned pale and retreated in haste, but Wong Lin moved even faster. With a stride, his right hand formed 2 fingers like a sword and thrust forward with piercing intent. As the emissary retreated, he quickly struck his storage pouch. 3 small flags emerged, swirling around him, forming a vortex of purple aura. Wong Lin's twin fingers struck the vortex. A powerful recoil burst forth, halting Wong Lin momentarily, but his gaze only sharpened. The emissary used the moment to retreat again. Wong Lin sneered, raised his right hand, and the beast bone tattoo on the back of his hand squirmed, transforming and releasing a flash of murderous aura. In that instant, a gray light surged from beneath the emissary's feet. His face turned ashen. The 3 flags spun faster, and the purple aura thickened, preparing to resist the incoming gray light. But before he could act, Wong Lin closed in and with a single finger unleashed the immortal art of immobilization. The emissary froze for just an instant, yet that was enough. The gray light surged up and engulfed him. Wong Lin stepped forward and brought down his foot. With a series of cracking sounds, the emissary shattered into countless fragments, falling to the ground. His essence spirit, however, wrapped into 3 flags, fled upward. "Don't kill me, I have a rare trees." Before he could finish, Wong Lin's eyes flashed. He leapt forward, and with a finger, summoned the Kunji whip. One lash, and the essence spirit shrieked in agony. Wong Lin reached out and snatched the 3 flags mid-air. He spat out a breath of essence spirit energy, which transformed into a host of restriction seals, enveloping the essence spirit and sealing it, flags and all, into his storage pouch. Meanwhile, the other 2 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries had been surrounded by hordes of cultivators. Under the assault of the 2 Yang fulfillment cultivators, the combined might of several Yin deficiency cultivators, and the charge of the peak cultivators, they were forced into a continual retreat. At that moment, a flash of silver radiance burst forth. One of the emissaries was struck in the chest, blood gushing out. His eyes dimmed as his essence spirit flew from his crown, clinging to his storage pouch, trying to escape. Before Wong Lin could take action, dozens of cultivators vying for the Tao approached in a frenzy, their eyes bloodshot as they recklessly unleashed their divine powers to counter the essence spirit. Among them, the silver radiance relentlessly pursued. Moments later, the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary perished completely. At this moment, 3 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries, seated cross-legged on the ground, completed the activation of the formation. Without hesitation, they each brought their arms together, chanting a series of complex incantations. Immediately, the teleportation array began to emit a blinding light from its edges, unexpectedly collapsing. The collapse of the teleportation array accelerated its activation speed. In an instant, waves of circular ripples spread, shooting toward the sky. Within those ripples, the 3 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries twisted and transformed into glowing orbs that shot upward, slowly dissipating. As the ripples spread, the formation trembled violently. The surrounding dazzling light condensed toward the center, while the edges of the light quickly collapsed, shattering into fragments. The last Thunder Immortal Palace emissary, locked in battle with the cultivators, staggered and quickly retreated, rushing into the light pillar. Just as they were about to vanish, Wong Lin stepped forward, raising his hand with fingers forming a sword. As he brought them down, the severing Luo art flashed, cutting through the light pillar. The light pillar instantly shattered and disappeared. In that brief moment, the 4 Thunder Immortal Palace emissaries inside, their faces filled with terror, seemed as if they were being torn apart. Their forms crumbled and vanished. With the collapse of the light pillar, the ripples in the teleportation array grew stronger, and the dazzling light around it converged. Another light pillar formed. All the cultivators around rushed in, as if fearing that a moment's hesitation would trap them forever. Shen Gonghu was the only one who did not take action. The Thunder Immortal Palace had once supported him, though after sacrificing his Tao soul, he had been isolated by the palace. Regardless, he could not intervene, and to avoid trouble, he had used his divine powers to alter his appearance before entering the teleportation array 10 miles away. Now, he also rushed into the light pillar. As each cultivator entered the light pillar, its radiance grew more intense. When Shi Zifeng entered, she glanced back at Wong Lin, biting her lip, as if she wanted to say something. The collapse at the edge of the teleportation array spread wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it nearly contracted to the outer edge of the light pillar. The formation's collapse exceeded its limit, hastening the teleportation. Wong Lin stepped into the light pillar, gazing up at the sky, silently thinking, "It's time to leave." The collapse of this teleportation array is a good thing. Even if it hadn't collapsed, I planned to destroy it the moment we teleported, causing a disturbance at the destination. This way, we'll avoid ending up in the Thunder Immortal Palace. The light pillar shot into the sky, releasing a tremendous force. Just as it was about to dissipate, the Sun Fulfillment Cultivator, who had earlier transformed into Silver Radiance, shouted, "Senior, please tell us your name. Your kindness will never be forgotten." Sumu. Wong Lin's figure disappeared with the light pillar. Shi Zifeng's eyes lit up, and her heart silently repeated, "Sumu. Your great kindness, we will never forget." As the light pillar vanished, all the cultivators inside murmured softly in unison. They had remembered the name Sumu. It would never be forgotten in this life.